feel like me and Doug is going so strong with this whole reality thing, even though other couples kind of fall apart and implode. We've had some huge arguments.
Nobody expected it to escalate so fast. One moment, Jackie was the picture of a devoted wife. Then, almost overnight, she demanded an outrageous $300 million from Doug in the divorce settlement. The media ate it up, the public lost their minds, and suddenly Doug was branded the ultimate villain. But that was only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the headlines and teary-eyed interviews lay a labyrinth of hidden accounts, secret strategies, and schemes nobody saw coming. By the time it all exploded in court, one thing became clear.
We best friends, we talk about everything, we do everything together. We watch movies together, all that, not just regular movies.
Nope.
Doug is the love of my life.
Word? Because he light-skinned?
Yeah.
Jackie had been plotting more than anyone could have imagined. The shock of Jackie's $300 million demand rippled through social media, daytime talk shows, and celebrity gossip columns. At first, everyone thought Doug was some sort of heartless cheater or manipulator. Jackie certainly played the sorrowful role well, but here's where things took a turn. The whole time Jackie was pointing fingers, Doug stayed eerily quiet. Instead of running to the press or issuing defensive statements, he calmly watched the world turn against him.
Has he ever cheated? And no?
If he had, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be in jail. I'd rather be known as crazy than some other name like Slutty or some of that.
People called it guilt, saying his silence proved he had something to hide. In reality, it was the exact opposite. Doug was biding his time, collecting evidence that would not only clear his name, but potentially shatter Jackie's elaborate claims. Publicly, Jackie insisted she had sacrificed everything for Doug's success. She sobbed on camera, telling anyone who would listen that she was left with absolutely nothing. Friends and fans rallied behind her, demanding Doug pay up for all the pain he'd caused.
I will be honest. I want to always be transparent over the fact that sometimes what these people say and people, coming at me affects me, and I be sad or I might be, angry about it.
But that wasn't the entire story. Jackie's repeated line about being broke turned out to be a smokescreen. While she depicted herself as financially ruined, she'd been making suspicious moves behind the scenes, transferring money into obscure accounts and wiping out digital traces wherever she could. Meanwhile, Doug's legal team was on the hunt, determined to uncover whatever skeletons Jackie was frantically hiding. The frenzy intensified when Jackie's supporters dug up every small flaw or rumor from Doug's past. Gossip headlines declared he had lied about his achievements.
Jackie, it's been really, really difficult. It all comes from her own personal insecurities, and I'm tired.
Cheated on Jackie and dismissed her contributions as worthless. Talk shows invited armchair experts who vehemently blasted Doug's character. But then something unsettling leaked. Quiet murmurs emerged that Jackie wasn't the helpless victim she portrayed. Anonymous tips suggested there were paper trails, receipts, and confidential emails that painted a very different picture of who was actually wronged. Journalists tried to chase down these rumors, but they had no idea the explosive evidence Doug's attorneys were preparing to drop. Court day arrived under a storm of flashing cameras and reporters clamoring for a statement.
I just thought that was so funny. I mean, the team knew, because whenever I travel with them, they would see ladies come up and interview Doug all the time. But that was just something that they just wanted to stigmatize me with, and they wouldn't accept the fact that I don't have any control over who my husband interviews with. And
Jackie strutted into the room, looking calm and confident, while Doug maintained a stony silence. On the surface, it seemed Jackie had the upper hand. The media had shown her overwhelming sympathy, and Doug stood accused in the court of public opinion. But it gets crazier. As soon as Doug's lawyer rose to speak, a hush fell over the crowd. He presented a thick folder of documents to the judge, who began reading, and whose expression turned from bored to shocked in a matter of seconds. One by one, the records detailed how Jackie had siphoned massive sums of money into hidden accounts while simultaneously pleading poverty.
he interviewed all the time. He interviewed with Dana, and look, she's a beautiful woman. So
Would you prefer that he interviewed, that men were there? It's a locker room. It's a strange situation after games.
It didn't matter to me as long as he, felt like interviewing and stuff. But he was really focused and stuff back then. He was really, chasing the ring.
Suddenly, her heartfelt interviews seemed less like desperation and more like manipulation. Jackie's attorneys exchanged worried glances. They'd built their entire argument around Doug being the unfaithful betrayer, painting Jackie as the financially destitute wife who had no choice but to seek an enormous settlement. The newfound documents undercut every word of that narrative. But listen to this. Jackie's deception went further than anyone realized. Not only did she transfer her own funds, she'd meticulously staged evidence to make Doug look worse. fabricating details and exaggerating the timeline of their marital problems. In an instant, the story flipped. The woman who begged for sympathy and claimed Doug's success was due to her sacrifices now stood accused of orchestrating a massive con. On the courtroom floor, chaos erupted. Reporters scrambled for fresh angles, legal analysts whispered to each other, and Jackie's supporters watched in disbelief. Doug's team laid out email chains where Jackie explicitly discussed the divorce plan months before it happened, plotting how to appear penniless in court so the judge would look more favorably upon her demand. But that's not all. It turned out Jackie had roped in a few close confidants and even her assistant to keep these covert accounts running. People who once seemed like loyal allies apparently turned against her when they realized the stakes. Doug had testimonies and statements from Jackie's own circle, proof that she wasn't just a victim of heartbreak, but the engineer of an elaborate scheme. Jackie's face grew paler with each revelation. She shot daggers at Doug from across the courtroom, at times whispering furiously to her lawyer. The judge questioned Jackie's legal team about the hidden money, asking why this wasn't disclosed at the start. Jackie's counsel stumbled, calling the evidence incomplete or misleading, but it was too detailed to dismiss. But then Jackie tried a desperate move. She implied that she had damaging information on Doug, some secret so big it could ruin him. In a low, trembling voice, she threatened to expose him if he didn't back down. The gallery gasped. Could there really be more to this feud than even Doug knew? Doug's attorney responded calmly, basically challenging Jackie to reveal whatever she claimed to have. The tension in the room soared as Jackie clenched her fists, clearly stalling for time, trying to find an angle to regain control. But the biggest bombshell was yet to come. Doug produced a set of voice recordings and leaked emails, solid proof that Jackie had not only been plotting the divorce, but bragging to a friend about how smart she was to blindside Doug. In these messages, Jackie laid out her cunning strategy point by point, staged the perfect storm of public sympathy, pushed Doug into a corner, and cash out with a fortune. Suddenly, any threat she made about Doug's secrets seemed hollow by comparison. Spectators in the courtroom could hardly believe what they were hearing. Here was Jackie, the same person who claimed on TV that she was blindsided by Doug's betrayal. Yet there she was, in her own words, openly admitting to orchestrating the entire scenario. Cameras flashed, capturing her stunned expression as the judge sternly asked if she had anything to say in her defense. But it gets worse. Once the judge realized how deep the deception ran, he hinted at potential legal consequences beyond just dismissing Jackie's alimony claims. Words like financial fraud and perjury buzzed through the gallery. Jackie had not only lied to her husband, she may have lied under oath. The stakes had skyrocketed far beyond a messy celebrity split. Realizing the walls were closing in, Jackie started to lash out, shouting at Doug and at the people she believed had betrayed her. She demanded to speak privately, to work out a deal, and avoid further humiliation. But Doug was done negotiating. For too long, she had painted him as a monster, and he refused to let her quietly save face. But here's a critical twist. While Jackie had threatened to reveal Doug's secrets, Doug's attorney insisted they had already prepared for any last-ditch smear tactic. If Jackie tried to pull another stunt, they'd counter with more evidence about her hidden dealings. Cornered by her own lies, Jackie had nowhere left to turn. The judge paused the proceedings, calling for a short recess to digest the mountain of evidence presented. Jackie's attorney tried to regroup, speaking to her in hushed tones, but she shot him a furious glare. Nothing was going according to her plan. Across the aisle, Doug stood in stoic silence, refusing to gloat but clearly relieved the truth was coming out at last. But it doesn't end there. Cameras in the hallway caught Jackie venting to someone on her phone, possibly threatening them for leaking her emails and recordings. Legal experts on TV were already predicting that if proven guilty of fraud, Jackie might face serious repercussions beyond just losing her claim to Doug's wealth. When the judge reconvened, the tension in the courtroom was suffocating. He announced that based on newly uncovered evidence, Jackie's request for $300 million in alimony was outright denied. The crowd buzzed with excitement and disbelief. Then, in an unexpected turn, the judge ordered Jackie's assets frozen, pending an investigation into potential financial misconduct. But here's the bigger shock. Jackie erupted, her cool facade shattering as she slammed her hands on the table, insisting Doug and the court were being manipulated. She demanded someone listen to her side, but the reality was, everyone had already heard enough, and her own emails had done the talking. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed for statements. Doug's attorney gave a succinct no comment, emphasizing that everything needed to play out legally. Jackie, on the other hand, faced a relentless wave of questions about her hidden accounts and false claims. For once, her tears found no audience. Nobody was buying them anymore. But that's not all. Even Jackie's previous supporters seemed to abandon her, feeling duped by her made-up sob stories. The internet lit up with memes and fiery discussions about how quickly someone's carefully cultivated reputation can go up in flames once real proof hits the table. As days passed, more evidence trickled out. Bank statements, testimony from Jackie's personal assistant, details about the hush money she'd offered to keep people quiet. Every new document further confirmed Jackie's grand plan: present herself as a needy victim to score a massive settlement, then vanish with the funds. But here's the real clincher. It emerged that Jackie had bragged to a close friend about her intentions weeks before filing for divorce. The friend, feeling guilty for enabling such a scheme, stepped forward with incriminating screenshots of text messages. In them, Jackie laughed about how she'd make Doug pay for everything and described her steps to cover her tracks. The relentless media coverage turned Jackie's downfall into a public spectacle. Talk shows ran segments analyzing her body language in past interviews, pointing out all the times she might have lied. Some cynically noted how she had built her entire story on crocodile tears and manipulative theatrics. But it doesn't get any kinder from here. Legal pundits concluded that Jackie's chance of winning a significant settlement had not only dwindled to zero, but she now risked facing criminal charges. After all, forging documents and hiding assets aren't just nasty tactics. They're punishable offenses in most courts. Meanwhile, Doug finally felt a sense of vindication. He'd spent months in silence, branded a traitor and a cheater by millions who believed Jackie's sob stories. Now he could walk down the street without that cloud of suspicion over his head. The truth, documented in undeniable form, had exonerated him. But the aftermath went deeper. Close friends of the couple revealed how Jackie had always been calculating, treating relationships as chess pieces to be maneuvered for power and wealth. In private circles, whispers suggested that her marriage to Doug was never really about love. It was part of a bigger plan to climb social and financial ladders. Even with public sympathy shifting, Doug stayed cautious. He knew Jackie well enough to suspect she might still try something drastic if she saw a window of opportunity. The judge's decision to freeze her assets was a significant blow, but everyone wondered, could she have more hidden accounts or an entirely different strategy on the side? But the biggest lesson emerged. No scheme is foolproof when digital footprints exist. Jackie might have believed she'd covered her tracks, but in the age of emails, text messages, and bank logs, truly erasing evidence is almost impossible. And Doug's team had become experts at following the trail she left behind. As the court date for the final ruling approached, speculation ran wild about what Jackie might do next. Would she cut a plea deal to avoid more serious consequences? Would she flee the country, leaving behind the havoc she created? Nobody had a clear answer, but the sense of impending doom hovered around Jackie wherever she went. But the meltdown everyone anticipated arrived swiftly. On the day of the final hearing, Jackie attempted to strike a bargain, offering to tell the court everything about Doug if they'd spare her. The judge, unimpressed, reminded her that the case was about her deception, not Doug's imaginary crimes. Cameras captured the exact moment she realized she couldn't talk her way out of this. In that last session, Doug's attorney reviewed the entire timeline, starting from Jackie's first suspicious transfer of funds, all the way to her brazen attempt at blackmail. The evidence was overwhelming. With no believable defense, Jackie sat in a stunned silence as the judge declared her claims dismissed and took note of the potential perjury. But the repercussions would echo far beyond the courtroom. With her image in shreds, brand deals and endorsements vanished. Friends who once praised her charm ghosted her to avoid the media circus. Every aspect of her personal and professional life was in freefall, and there was no easy fix. In a final attempt to regain any shred of public favor, Jackie agreed to a single interview, one rumored to be a last-ditch effort at damage control. But the interviewer came armed with the very evidence that dismantled Jackie's story in court. Faced with her own voice recordings and email transcripts, Jackie stumbled through half-hearted excuses. The broadcast ended with her walking off set, tearful and visibly shaken. But here's what truly stung. The public had already made up its mind. Once the deception was laid bare, nobody cared about her rationalizations. She had used the media to spin a sob story, and the media now turned the spotlight on her lies. Ultimately, this story is about how a once happy couple's divorce morphed into a high-stakes battle riddled with lies and hidden agendas. Jackie's brazen demand for $300 million triggered a scandal unlike anything the tabloids had ever seen. She counted on public sympathy to force Doug into submission, but underestimated the power of concrete evidence. In the end, she lost more than the settlement. Her entire reputation collapsed under the weight of her deception. Doug, who started as the presumed villain, walked away vindicated, a reminder that no matter how cunning a plan may be, the truth will always find its way to the surface. And as the final gavel fell, everyone watching was left with one definitive takeaway. In the courtroom of life, no lie stays hidden forever.